This video was brought to you by Brilliant. The Conservative leadership election of summer 2022 has since been framed as a fight between the libertarian right of the Conservatives and the more moderate soft right of the party. Truss wanted to cut taxes across the board, in some cases even scrapping some taxes entirely. She regularly took swipes at woke culture and promised to double down on the Rwanda plan. In comparison to that, then, it's understandable why Sunak appeared to be moderate. However, if we dive deeper into his policies and look more critically at how he's acted in number 10, it becomes quickly obvious that he isn't just some sort of soft right moderate. In fact, Sunak may well be the most right-wing prime minister that this country has had since Margaret Thatcher. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, it's worth getting the most obvious thing out of the way first. Liz Truss. How can Sunak be the most right-wing prime minister when he directly followed Liz Truss, a person who was selected by the Tory party membership specifically because she was more right-wing than Sunak? Well, in essence, it's because Truss wasn't in office long enough to bring her right-wing vision to fruition. She didn't introduce any new legislation on migrants, nor on the culture war, nor on net zero. She may have espoused opinions on all of these things, but the only thing she really had time to do while in number 10 was introduce her mini-budget, which went well.
I am a fighter and not a quitter. I am resigning.
Now, Sunak, by comparison, has been in office more than 5 times longer than Truss, and as such, he's had more than enough time to legislate on all of these matters. So let's split the rest of this video into 3 sections, taking a look at Sunak's policies on migration, the culture war, and the environment. Let's start with migration. Now, it is true that some of Sunak's predecessors took a keen interest in the issue of migration and asylum. As Home Secretary, Theresa May was the architect of the so-called hostile environment policy, in which she explicitly stated that she did not want illegal immigrants. And this is something that the UN later said amounted to stoking xenophobia. Then Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government went even further, introducing the Nationality and Borders Bill. The most significant change that this made was to create 2 different categories of asylum seekers, which in essence allows those who have broken laws to get to the UK to seek asylum to be treated more harshly than other migrants, something that was, yet again, criticised by UN human rights experts. And yet, Sunak's new Illegal Migration Act goes further still. It allows authorities not only to treat asylum seekers using illegal means to get to the UK more harshly, but it also allows them to be detained, removed, and blocked from returning. It also disapplies the modern slavery protections to asylum seekers, with Sunak saying that they cannot make spurious rights claims and that they can't stay. The point is that while former Home Secretaries and Prime Ministers have tried to enact policies to clamp down on migration and asylum, none of them have gone as far as Sunak has. In fact, some of the people who started this ball rolling, such as Theresa May, have actually gone back and criticised Sunak for going too far, with May saying that Sunak's new policies would enable more slave drivers to make money out of human misery. So it does seem that Sunak is the most right-wing PM on migration and asylum in recent years. But what about the culture war? Well, the modern culture war has only really come into existence in the last few years. While Conservatives were historically more socially right-wing, this seemed to change with David Cameron's 2010 to 2015 government. Keen to shake off the label of the nasty party. As Prime Minister, Cameron introduced the Marriage Same-Sex Couples Bill in 2013, which, when passed, made gay marriage legal. And this was a huge symbolic shift for the same party which introduced Section 28, which banned teachers and other public sector workers from even discussing homosexuality. Although it is still worth noting that a majority of Tory MPs did still vote against Cameron's same-sex marriage bill. As Prime Minister, Theresa May spoke to Pink News about the importance of updating the Gender Recognition Act to allow people to change their gender without medical checks. Similarly, in 2020, Johnson's government introduced compulsory LGBTQ inclusive sex and relationship education in schools. So there was some evidence then that Cameron's shift in the Conservative Party from being socially conservative to more socially liberal had paid off, and that this trend might hold up. That was until Rishi Sunak. Before he even took the job as Prime Minister, he claimed that he wanted to review the Equalities Act to stop, quote, woke nonsense from permeating public life. Specifically, he said that he wanted to preserve gendered words such as woman and mother by making sure that sex means biological sex in the act. In fact, his government's more hostile attitude towards the transgender community was demonstrated further by a spat between the Scottish government and Westminster. In essence, the Scottish government planned to try and make it easier for people to self-identify. However, the Scottish Secretary in Westminster, Alistair Jack, blocked the proposal using a Section 35 notice, known colloquially as the nuclear option, claiming that this new plan would have an adverse impact on the UK's wider equalities law. Seemingly then, gone are the days of the Conservative government even trying to advance minority rights. Here, the Tories were actively blocking a delegated power from doing so. It seems then that on social issues too, Sunak is the most right-wing Prime Minister we've had in recent years. So let's move on and discuss the final topic, the environment. Again, this is a topic that David Cameron tried to demonstrate his enthusiasm for during his tenure as Prime Minister, although even Prime Ministers as far back as Thatcher took a keen interest in this topic. Now, this all started in the run-up to the 2010 election, when Cameron famously used the slogan, "Vote Blue, Go Green." While his approach to the environment, while actually in office, has been criticised, he at least started the ball rolling on this issue. Then, under Theresa May, the UK government committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, making the UK the first major economy to agree to something like this. Johnson's support for the environment was then further committed by his net zero strategy, which introduced a deadline for the sale of new petrol and diesel cars at the end of this decade. For his part, Sunak hasn't really followed his predecessors and hasn't put too much effort into demonstrating his support for the environment. This is something that Lord Goldsmith actually observed, saying that Sunak was uninterested in the environment before subsequently handing in his resignation because of this issue. Other environmental groups have also noticed this change as well, and just this week, they wrote a letter to the Prime Minister expressing their deep alarm at reports that the government may water down pre-existing environmental commitments. So again, it seems that the Prime Minister has demonstrated that he's more right-wing on this issue too than his predecessors, simply appealing to the status quo and refusing to legislate on it. All in all, while Sunak did appear to be moderate last year, this was helped by the fact that he was frequently compared to Truss, who, had she been in office, may well have been even more right-wing still. In reality then, Sunak is still one of, if not the most right-wing Prime Minister the UK has had in years. And it's increasingly difficult to tell what's real and fake, with AI and machine learning pushing us into new realms of deception. And it's also increasingly easy to manipulate and deceptively use data. That's why, as part of our journalism at TLDR, we're brushing up on our data and analysis skills over on Brilliant. For instance, their predicting with probability course has helped us better understand how projections and forecasts work, and therefore help us better identify when something suspicious is going on with government forecasting. Or take their hypothesis testing course, which allows us to better analyze people's claims and also test our own assumptions and theories. It's not just statistics either. The interactive and engaging courses over at Brilliant take you through all kinds of important topics, from the worlds of maths, science, and computer science. And as we all know, these are increasingly important topics in our modern world, and all of these skills can definitely help with your educational journey or career path. So take a positive step in your learning and check out everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days by clicking the special link in the description. And the first 200 of you to do so will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription.